Hey everybody, welcome back to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 636, being recorded on July 7, 2021. I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm going to be Brett tonight.
Okay. And you can subscribe to find out when we go live for events like this at pcper.com/subscribe. Join our mailing list and the party, the live streaming action that you've missed. You can also go to patreon.com/pcper and support the site, the podcast, us. We appreciate it. Do we have a new patron, Brett?
In fact, we do. I believe it's, some would say, the first patron, really. This patron's name is spectacularly Adam. Just Adam. I'll forever refer to him as first patron.
The very first
not
patron,
that.
yes. In the beginning, there was Adam, and he contributed
in the beginning,
to PC per Patreon.
That is exactly what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much, Adam.
Now, the reason you contributed, no doubt, was this very next segment, the most important segment of the week. Mm-hmm. We visit Josh in Laramie, Wyoming, camera 2.
Hang on. Oh.
Is your wife playing Skyrim
the burger.
back there?
What?
Has your wife got Skyrim paused on the back there?
No, it's a bear walking through a forest, and it's it's the active desktop, whatever you call it.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So no, that'd be kind of funny if my wife actually played Skyrim. Sadly, she does not. Okay, now this is a little bit of a step away from what we usually have as a special. This is the Route 66 burger. So you've got some pretty groovy music that you can put to this. So this is a layered cheeseburger. And by layers I mean they put different stuff at different places and have it all separated by the patties. So it starts off the top of the bun, and then pickles, then yellow mustard, and American cheese with white onions that were slightly caramelized, because Lorash wanted to know that. And here's the second patty, and under that is more American cheese, white onion, and finally the bun. And so it doesn't look like much in the picture. It's a little squished, and they're 2-ounce patties rather than 4-ounce. So instead of a half pound, it's like getting a Big Mac. You got a quarter pound of meat in there, and it's not as filling as the other stuff, but it is tasty. It's very much a classic cheeseburger without any ketchup, and so you got that good yellow mustard flavor going in there, and they've layered everything in between the different patties and the buns, and so it isn't just one layer of stuff. You always seem to have a different amount of onions and pickles and splotches of yellow mustard. And so it was a satisfying burger. Not their greatest, and certainly not terribly original, but it was a different presentation of a classic, and therefore it was quite good.
Thank you for clearing that up, because I read the board and I got quite worried. Because it said pickles, yellow mustard, American, white onions, 2-ounce patty. It doesn't imply it's cheese. It sort of implies that it was just an American in there.
No, it was American cheese.
Okay, as a Canadian, it didn't hit me
maybe
that
it was
way.
made by an American. I don't know. It's a cheese-like product.
Yeah, the oil cheese, like American Singles. Is that what it was, or was it real?
Yep.
Is it cheddar?
Yeah, there is a time and a place for American cheese, and sometimes on
There
burgers,
is.
because
There is a time and a place. It's when you're 6 years old.
Content. You can blow me. I mean, typically I like cheddar, but you know what? Sometimes you got to expand your horizons.
Mm-hmm.
Or go back in time to an era when you had no choice but to eat what was served.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. If I could go back to being 8 years old,
Would you?
You'd have all this again.
Yeah.
Really? 8? That's the age you would
Sure.
pick. 8.
Well, I mean, if I was given a choice, it was like, do you want to go back in time and be 8 years old? I'd be like, sure. It's not like somebody said, hey, you can go back in time. What age do you want to be? In that case, I'd maybe choose 18 or 19.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So you can skip second puberty?
Microsoft issues emergency Windows patch for
Printers of the devil.
Nightmare. What is
Yeah,
Print
Print Spooler.
Nightmare?
And you know what the best part about this is? The patch doesn't work. There's still workarounds with the print.
Oh, great.
Oh no! What do you mean?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yes. This other link. The print nightmare continues.
Oh yeah.
Vulnerable code in all versions of Windows.
Well, they didn't send out a patch for Windows 11, actually,
Or NT for that matter, upsettingly.
Sorry.
but they did patch Windows 7. By the way, they did send out a patch
And
for
patch
that.
Server
good.
2003.
And there are certain other fixes that do come with the patch. So even though they said, "Hey, we're not going to patch that particular operating systems ever again," extenuating circumstances.
All right, so short version, what do we do right now?
Unplug all
Oh,
your
you gotta
printers, never use them again.
Just is it network
gotta-
connected printers or is it any printer?
All printers,
I think-
everywhere.
It's the print sharing mechanism, if I'm
Yes.
not mistaken. So if you have a locally connected printer and you're resharing it using a Windows printer sharing service,
Oh,
shut that crap off.
I feel like that's
Or
less
you
common
fired it up
now.
on a network and you've set it up so that people can connect to that printer and not need to worry about installing the driver manually. Yeah, then you're hooped.
Now, the funny thing about the background about this particular one is it wasn't necessarily the bad guys, all right? It was actually the good guys who figured this out. White hats figured this problem out and then accidentally released it too soon, thinking, I don't even know what they were thinking. But anyway, they put out a proof of concept that ended up on GitHub, of all places, and the bad guys picked it up and just ran with it. And they tried to pull it back, and it was way too late. It's the internet. What are you going to do?
Microsoft says that it was a miscommunication and that they clearly communicated to the white hats that they were not yet ready to have it revealed. Whereas the white
Right.
hats are like, yeah, what email? So yeah, there
I
was a
thought I
mix-up
read
somewhere.
something like Microsoft had told them like, "Oh yeah, we're good on this. You can talk about it now." When in reality, yeah, they were not. So
The next
Yeah.
story, Intel erased all the market share gains AMD CPUs made this year. Nearly 3 out of 4 CPUs on the Steam hardware survey are Intel chips. What's BS about this? I'm not even going to read the
Trick
article.
question?
No, it's Steam hardware surveys are very heavily influenced by internet cafes. And I think every time you log in, say the one person leaves, the next person logs in, don't they get another count on that configuration?
Yeah, if it's a different Steam account, then
Right.
and they've said yes to scanning it, then yeah.
So it's like, okay, Intel, and then log out, log in, Intel. Because a lot of those machines are based on small form factor or all-in-one like Intel systems with some sort of GPU, and
it'll be a GTX 1060.
probably because that's the number one GPU still.
It is. That was my point.
But I was
Well, I
just
mean, there's-
reading the other day that it's like 80% or more of all CPUs sold to enthusiasts. It's become even more than that. Are Ryzen.
Well, you're also not talking about change. You're talking about total market. And yes, Intel's total market share, especially of the stuff that no one's upgraded in a while, is probably floating around there. What we've been talking about is the change after the last couple of generations of Ryzen that AMD's share has increased significantly and is accelerating. So yeah, by saying that the person that used to have 85-90% of the market shares erased their lead by still holding 3/4 of it. Yeah, it's a great headline. I wouldn't use it myself.
But, we also have to kind of look at the last 3 quarters when, AMD released the Ryzen 5000. And that was the hot chip to get. I mean, until recently, the 5600X has not been available except for certain drops happening now and then. Now it's widely available. Now the 5800X is widely available. But the two, crown of crown jewels, the 5900 and the 5950, they have not been. And so if you kind of look at enthusiasts, you can kind of see what maybe some people were thinking. And this is just speculation, but someone's buying a computer, someone's building one. It's like, hey, what's available that I can build myself? All these AMD processors, and really up until February, even the 3000 series AMD processors were in short supply. And so it's not a shock that a lot of people ended up buying like a 10400K or a 106 or a 107. 10700 was a fantastic part, and the 108 was a really nice jump up from the 7, but not, getting close to the 900. And those were widely available for months and months and months and months. And now we've got the 11 series that's, again, pretty widely available. I mean, we're not seeing shortages of either of the Intel CPU generations here. And they've got plenty of motherboards out there. And if you were going to buy something, from October through March to April, and if you really wanted an AMD, you'd have to wait for any of them. And I mean, how many people, if they know that they're going to buy a new machine and they're going to get an AMD part, how many would go back to a 3000 series knowing that a 5000 series is out there and it had all this extra performance, much more efficient, all of these things, higher memory speed, stuff enthusiasts really like. And they have a choice between that and a similarly priced Intel 10000 series or 11000 series. And you could actually buy it. And so I think, those enthusiasts and those who actually do the Steam survey are they may be more along that line than, just a regular customer, because you can still buy the, go on to Newegg and with their, I can't remember the name of their built-in brand, but I mean, there's a ton of reasonably priced AMD 3000 series, usually bundled with, NVIDIA 3000 series, whether it's a 3060 or a 3070. There's a lot of them under $2,000. And so, yeah, I don't know. But there's a lot of Intel 10000 series from Newegg as well that are bundled with good cards that you just can't get by themselves. So,
what do you think the presence of the iGPU might have had on Intel sales?
Probably significantly positive, because you could not buy, and you still can't buy, any of the higher end AMD integrated parts. So AMD with the Ryzen with Vega, you're looking at a 3400 for about $230, which is,
if you could find it. That one was a tough one to find.
And that's insane. And so people who want to at least have graphics on their board, you're not going to get it with a 3000 or a 5000 series regular AM4 AMD, because those don't have any graphics whatsoever. So that's a great point. Every Intel chip comes with a 600 series graphics, and the new stuff with the XE, XI, anyway,
XE. Yeah, so you couldn't even do function testing, on your GPU-less Zen build.
Yeah. Why are we acting?
So you just have to go back to your Xbox or your PlayStation.
Why are we acting like enthusiasts don't have some old GPU on hand that they could plug in to do this?
Because it's an interesting thought experiment. Just throw out there and wonder kind of what effect
it's
it might
have had on
there.
It's an interesting pro-Intel thought experiment. Yes,
it is. Yes, it is.
Some of us can't afford the wooden dish racks to keep them all on.
It's an excellent segue into the next story.
Garbage PCI Express cards that weren't even worth the trouble of trying to sell, and nobody that I knew wanted one if I was just going to give it away. Are
you talking down my GT 710 again? Is that what you're doing?
Like a Radeon 2400 HD or whatever that old series was, like a half-height card that's crap but would at least give you a display, something like that. Like, I feel like people would have something to use, and you can actually still buy like a 710 or a 730 for less than $100. But I have not talked to anybody who was building a new system with anything but Ryzen, and I feel like you have to have a special reason to be building Intel anymore until they have a new architecture and better performance.
Reason or hatred? Most of the people I know that are going Intel this generation are because they always do, because they recall a conversation on a bulletin board back in the 90s about how AMD was horrible.
Right. Well, it's not even that. I mean, okay, if you've messed with the Ryzen 1000 and 2000 series,
Yeah, okay.
There are issues that pop up, especially when it comes to memory speed and some other functionality. And a lot of those didn't go away until the 3000 series. And even then, there was a few niggling little issues that some people had. But the 5000 series has pretty much corrected all of that. I mean, it's a really solid thing. And sure, with the X570 USB 2.0 issues, that's one thing. But in terms of CPU, these really are some of the best CPUs that AMD has ever put out. The other ones that I would consider to be pretty good would be the Phenom 2 with the 890 FX chipset. That was pretty bulletproof overall. And plus they had SATA 6 support well before Intel. And that was about the previous really good one that we had. And now with the 3000 improving a lot over the 2000 and 1000. And then the 5000 just kind of blowing everything away.
Yeah, exactly. You look at any YouTube or traditional review online, and it's AMD at the top of almost every... I can't think of any chart where AMD wouldn't be on top. And it used to be Intel could at least claim...
Octane benchmarks.
Okay. So... they lead in their own proprietary technology.
AVX2.
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
AVX
there's two.
512.
Two proprietary.
Intel is the king of AVX 512. But if you look at gaming, I couldn't believe this when I tested it myself, but a 5800X blowing away the 11900K, the 10900K, and just not even, it wasn't even close. Ultra high frame rate, low resolution, low detail settings gaming used to be the way you could easily show the advantage of Intel to the tune of like 20% over Ryzen in the first generation. And it shrunk a little bit, but now it's like the other way around. You're gaining big FPS numbers by going on the Ryzen platform. It's crazy. So it's just, and Intel, I know that, at least my own feeling is I don't care that much about power. I know it looks really bad on a chart to say Intel's using 100 watts more from the wall. Okay. If I'm an enthusiast and I have an 850 watt power supply and I still have headroom, I don't care. But
yeah, but in the peak of summertime, when you have to turn off your air conditioner because the electric companies are telling you to cut things back. Exactly. Some people have air conditioners. Maybe not you, Jeremy.
Well, he doesn't need it.
Usually Vancouver doesn't need them.
I did. Well, we were well over 100 freaking Fahrenheit last week.
Oh, that's right.
It might be next week as well.
Yeah,
but still,
this time they'll be able to say it's the second time it's ever happened. Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
but if you're in a situation like that where you don't live in Laramie, Wyoming, where it rarely gets above 85, it becomes an issue. Throwing an extra 100 watts of heat into your environment,
sure,
it gets your attention pretty quick. If you walk in there and you're gaming for 5 hours and you come out and you're just drenched in sweat. And it's like, you know what? Maybe I should get a cooler processor. But then I'm going to pair it with a 3090.
Yeah. Don't do that.
It runs at 350 watts. No.
At least.
Yeah.
Peak is a lot higher. But anyway. Yeah, I don't want to... I guess I have nothing else to say.
You don't want to belabor the point?
No. Except that, speaking of Ryzen, the fastest Ryzen with Vega graphics is the Ryzen 7 5700G. Tom's Hardware got their hands on one, ran it through their iGPU test suite, and we can look at some of the results.
It's a stormer.
Here we are, the first game. Well, this is a geo mean. Okay, this is the result of all the tests. This just boils down to this. The Ryzen 7 5700G on a B550 platform.
720p now, mind you.
So this is ultra low resolutions here at 1280 by 720, but 84.7 frames per second. Next closest, an HP system with the same processor, the 4750G Ryzen 7 Pro, 78.7 frames per second. The 3400G, the previous high-end APU that consumers could actually buy, 70 frames per second. And then the next one down is the Intel with the Xe graphics, the i7 11700K, 49.5 frames per second. So it's a huge drop off before you get to the first Intel CPU, and a Core i5-10600K, which when it launched was a great CPU for gaming. That generation, like versus Zen 2, only 31.3 frames per second with that older graphics architecture. So it's not hard to figure out when you start looking at these individual. Well, let's see, the 1080 results.
There's a few in here.
Really going to stand out. Like, let's look at that 10600 again. At the bottom of the chart, 18.7 frames per second across the board at 1080, the average. 54.4 for the 5700G. We're into legitimate gaming territory here.
If only I could buy a 5700G.
I know, but you can't buy a
maybe
GPU
at the end of this
either,
summer.
But I know.
Yeah, it looks like in a couple of weeks, or just a few weeks.
I'm into the Geomean. Okay, anyway. They have read the Tom's Hardware article if you want to see the individual games breakdown. But my only issue with this is that the price went up so significantly from the 3400G to the 5700G. And they didn't have a Ryzen 7 APU before. I get it. The Ryzen 5 APU this time around is less expensive, but it's still, what, $240? And the Ryzen 7 5700G is $359.
It is an 8-core 16-thread CPU, but it is not performance comparable to the 5800.
No, it has a lot less cache.
It's behind it. Yeah, it's definitely
it's like the
behind
mobile version. It's the monolithic die versus the chiplet design on desktop. But still, I mean, if you could,
okay, going on a segue.
Yeah,
I'm still kind of shocked that AMD has not done a chiplet strategy with integrated graphics rather than a monolithic die. There must be something with chiplets that is not copacetic with the GPU, because you'd think that would be knock it out of the park easy and increase your yields and bins and not have a large monolithic die, but instead having the IO chiplet on a separate process that you can optimize perfectly for that, and then your CPU on one and GPU on another. They've never done that. That was the promise for a long time, using the Infinity Fabric to be able to get those two different things together in a chiplet type structure, but it's never happened yet, and I'm not entirely sure why, and maybe somebody should ask AMD.
Maybe it's a cost thing. I mean, the Vega 8, is it still GCN? Really?
yeah.
It's practically free. You know, they know it's going to work. It's a very well understood.
Yeah, but why didn't not just then put it in a chiplet, and you don't have to have a memory controller? Sure. All you do is you connect it all via Infinity Fabric, and your memory controller is the I/O chip that services the CPU at the same time, and you just have interrupts in there and FIFO buffers and all kinds of fun things. And yeah, they've never done that. I don't know why.
All right, moving on to a story that I posted. I know it's not really PC hardware, but it's interesting. I mean, there's NVIDIA Tegra involved, but do you remember
people like your OLEDs?
Yeah, people like OLEDs. People like Nintendo. Remember at E3 when everybody was not just convinced there was going to be a Switch Pro, but it was being widely reported as fact, and there were just some minor debates about the actual capabilities of this new 4K DLSS version of the Switch. Mm-hmm. And then we didn't get anything. And now a month later, and surprise, Nintendo has a little video, and they're going to release the new Switch. So what is it?
The all new.
Well, ignore the white color scheme for the Joy-Cons here. It's the same thing, but instead of a 6.
Do they still taste bad?
I don't know. I think it was the cartridges actually. Instead of a 6.2 inch LCD,
did Ian eat one?
In the same space, they're putting a 7-inch OLED. I'm being a little salty here because there are some Nintendo faithful. I was reading some of the comments sections in one Discord group I'm a part of. They're just all about it. Like, I can't wait for the new Switch. I'm buying it day one kind of attitude. Like, are you serious? Because the behavior of most people with the non-Switch Lite, correct me if I'm wrong, is to keep it in its dock about 3/4 to 100% of the time and use your TV as the display. And what is the upgrade here if the only thing that's changed is the display that you're never going to see because it's behind a plastic shroud?
Better battery life?
Nope, exact same
If you're
battery,
mobile?
exact same SoC.
Well, you'd think that OLED would give you a little bit better. But
OLED
it's bigger.
consumes more
It's
power
bigger.
than standard
Oh,
batteries, but
I thought OLED was slightly.
there's this misunderstanding. I don't know if this is worth even talking about. I have heard this now from multiple sources. My OLED TV consumes quite a bit of power because if all the pixels are on, it's sucking down the power. And the brighter you have the screen, the more power it draws. But
yeah, but on your phone, you got mainly black backgrounds, unless you know.
yeah, if you manage OLED well, and this was a concern when OLED laptops first hit the scene. I know Alan did a review of a Lenovo laptop that had an OLED display, I think, years ago. We first saw it at CES in like 2016. And you had to manage power. You had to use black backgrounds and dark color schemes, and this was before dark mode on things. So it makes a lot more sense on phones where a lot of them have OLED screens. But on like an iPhone, for instance, there's, and on Android, there's dark mode. And almost everything has that darker. So it's just using less battery power to display the same stuff. Anyway.
Well, but it was counterintuitive to a lot because with most TN and other monitors like IPS, the blacks use more energy because you're maintaining the electrics to make sure that everything's being blocked. The backlight's being blocked.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Make it
As
fully
with
opaque.
OLED.
It's a twist.
Yeah, as well as OLED, it's a pneumatic twist.
Maybe because they're probably using
Emitter,
AMOLED.
if
It's
you
probably
will.
it's probably using a pentile pattern. Who knows? I doubt it's RGB stripe. So it might be significantly more efficient if they're using that shared green subpixel and stuff. But anyway, the capabilities are the same. Eurogamer ended up doing a thing about it, and people were sourcing The Verge because The Verge reached out to Nintendo. Nintendo confirmed, no, it's the same hardware. The only thing that changed was the OLED panel and the fact that they're upping the internal storage to 64 instead of 32 gigabytes. The only other change that they've mentioned was the flip stand on the back, which is a copy of the Microsoft Surface kickstand now. And when the other one was a terrible, flimsy piece of crap. So that's a good upgrade. And then the dock itself loses the USB port because it gains some sort of USB to network interface bridge chip because there's like an Ethernet port on the side of it now. But it's all via USB. Anyway, my point is that this is kind of a weird product in the story that I put up because you are paying for a 4-year-old console that has not had a price drop yet. Whereas previous Nintendo consoles always drop price after like 3 years. So it's $349 for this OLED version. The standard version is still $299, still available. It's all the family here. The standard Switch, $300. The OLED Switch, $350. And the Switch Lite at $199. So comparing the Switch Lite to this is 75% more expensive for something that you have to kind of, I don't know. It's weird to me. When I bought my N64 in 1999, it was $99. It had launched 3 years earlier at $199. It's just kind of the way this works. Nintendo didn't have to do anything last year. They sold every Switch they could make. Sales were unprecedented because of COVID. And now, here, instead of a price drop, here's the screen upgrade we should have probably provided 2 years ago for $50 more.
Yeah,
And it's
but
the
software,
same-
man.
I know the software, but still, it's the
Breath
same.
of the Wind, man.
Breath of the Wild, yes.
Wild.
It's the 16
Wild.
nanometer Tegra X1, which means that those rumors earlier
Beasts
this
of the
year
wind.
that were unverified, anonymous source rumors to some Australian publication, I think, that X1 has been discontinued by NVIDIA. Obviously not, because Nintendo is still producing new consoles every day, and they have a new revision of it using the same chip. So, more exciting 720p handheld gaming action, this time with a prettier screen.
Yay.
What is next? Ooh. I've never heard of this
Sure.
brand.
Yeah.
Forza? Neo Forza? Is it Forza?
Yeah,
or
they just
Forza?
came out a couple of months ago.
And where are the RGBs? I
Yeah.
asked.
Why isn't this lit up?
Dude, these guys are bargain basement. They have Opaz, OPEC, I can't remember the
Oh, no. The actual
something.
the ICs?
No.
don't know if it was real.
Who Olaf.
okay.
Why can't I remember the dims from a Newegg?
If it was
That are
real
just
bargain
dirt cheap.
basement, the PCB wouldn't be black.
Low.
It would be green.
Maybe black is the new green. Maybe it's just like,
Oh, okay. All right. I'm willing to accept that.
I don't really know. I have
Survey
not seen
says.
a new green. Are all the DDR5 modules going to be black or no? Like I saw some JEDEC ones that were black.
Yeah, Olo. Off the
Oloy.
chat. Or Oloy. Yeah. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Thanks,
It's like-
Kent.
I guess the story here is that they don't have any RGBs. Is that what this is?
And they're reasonably quick based upon the numbers.
These timings are not bad. Okay, this one kit that Tech Power Up looked at, 32 gigabytes, 2x16, 4400 megahertz, 19, 26, 26, 46 timings at 1.45 volts, which that's not the tightest timings ever, but still.
Well, for 4400, now that I don't like hockey anymore,
Oh, sorry.
bastards. No, 19 is actually kind of ridiculously good. 3600 kits would come with that. And, I mean, for your Intel system, it's brilliant because it really does like that high frequency. AMD, not quite so much.
No.
No,
because
not
and
synchronous.
they did run it at 4400. So, but then again,
Wait states.
they tried overclocking it, and apparently these guys actually pretty much pegged this as good as it can go and picked ICs that don't really do tighter timings yet lower frequencies. They also had to bump the voltage up a little bit. But yeah, they could literally do the same thing. There was no headroom, period. And that was dropping it down to 3600 and using the Ryzen memory tool.
Huh. Okay.
So yeah, apart from latency heavy stuff, this is actually a pretty impressive pair of DIMMs.
I looked at
And no RGBs.
I looked at a 4400 kit a little while back. I think it was who was it? It wasn't Patriot.
Are you sure?
G-Skill?
Somebody. Was it G-Skill?
It was Guile.
Guile, that's right.
Oh, there you go.
The Orion, which I was mispronouncing for some reason.
Really?
The Orion kit, because it was 4400 CAS 18. But again, I mean, there's no reason to run 4400 on an Intel, or I'm sorry, on a AMD platform, because
AMD.
it puts the Northbridge frequency at 1100 megahertz.
Yeah, it clocks down. Yeah.
So the performance was actually worse, and everything except for just straight up Ada memory benchmarks. Yeah, you'd see higher numbers, but then if you actually did anything else, a 3600 low latency kit like that Trident Z Neo that was CAS 14, which is crazy, was significantly outperforming it. It was near the bottom of the list, just because you're running the F clock so low. So don't do it. Not on an AMD platform. Run 3600 CAS 18 or lower. You'll be very happy.
CL16 stuff is still pretty reasonable price. That's CL14 though.
Yeah, the CL14, yeah, you pay way, way more for that. CL16
Way
in this
more.
kit was like $100 less, I think. And then
And the difference is amazingly similar to just general errors in testing.
yeah, again, synthetics will show a difference, but yeah, in real life, I don't think you're seeing much of a difference between like 15 and 16. 14 and 16, maybe like your 7-zip stuff. Anyway, yeah, another 4400 megahertz AMD option. We pretty much have to put AMD on the package now, I feel like. Again, because that's where the enthusiasts are.
Oh.
When these processors were popular, these slot A's, people were not jumping up and down excited about the Pentium 3. They were going out and buying this because it was cheaper and faster for gaming and doing the kinds of things that they wanted to do. And outside of optimized for Intel stuff, it was just faster in general.
And they were always a speed grade above Intel throughout that entire time. Intel would release a 650, AMD would release a 700. The only time that Intel did that differently was the Pentium 3 1133, which was disastrous for them. I think
Yeah.
they actually had 1,000 to 2,000 processors in the wild, and plus when you tried to compile on Linux, it would just die.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the 1 gigahertz Pentium 3 was the fastest, and AMD got to 1 gigahertz faster, but they faster overall product.
And this was when they were bragging about having significantly more MIPS than the P3 was.
Yeah.
Because not only were they faster, they were far more efficient.
Yeah.
The P3 was a bit of a dog, if you don't get what we're saying.
Audacity. People were up in arms about Audacity because of privacy.
Their audacious behavior?
Yeah.
This is
They kind of
very
came out
commonly
that
used.
they were selling user data and kind of, that, well, how do you get user data? That means you're logging user data and then selling it. So the Muse group now says, with backtracking, of course, after the backlash, that it won't sell the, quote, very limited, end quote, user data it will collect as being reported on Engadget here. They're the new owner, this Muse group, of Audacity. I thought Audacity was open source. What happened?
It kind of
So did a lot of people.
Yeah.
So did a lot of people.
A lot of this, what they had put into this privacy policy, actually flies into the face of some of the typical open source licenses that people apply to a lot of these projects from the GNU Foundation. You can't do this sort of thing. The thing that they were advertising that they were going to do in their privacy policies, such as, hey, here's the data we're going to collect on you, and we're going to share it with everybody. Basically, it was some weasel wording around who they were not going to share it with, and they could share it with anybody. And it was just terrible. I mean, a lot of the community was like, we will not stand for this. And there's several legitimate, now backed forks.
Well, they did say fork you.
They did, and then they did. There's several legitimate forks out there now. I don't know what's going to happen to them. I think they're probably going to still move forward on them because apparently the Muse group cannot be trusted. Just my personal opinion.
Give it 6 months, everyone will have forgot about it, and we'll just sneak it in again.
I'm an Audacity user, so
am I.
I'm like, which version should I not upgrade to? Is it too late? Do I already have the one that's spying on me? Not anymore.
Do you like the throwback look to its god awful user interface that hasn't?
That's a really good question.
It's a clunky, poorly optimized program.
I've gotten used to it.
Right, but I think the only reason anybody uses it is because it's free.
Speaking of software challenges.
Yeah, pfSense. This is over at Serve the Home. There's a new version. 2.5.2 of pfSense CE. What is the CE?
That's the community edition.
Okay.
That's the open source one.
Gotcha.
The pro version they sort of forked off, and it's pay a little bit more, but get a lot more support. But there's a frustration for early adopters, and the real kicker about pfSense is that chances are this is the type of person you are if you've rooted your router and are running pfSense. At 2.5, or sorry, just before 2.5, they were offering optional support for WireGuard. And so you could kind of bundle it in there and such. But as of 2.5, they realized, nope, we bit off a bit more than we were ready to chew at the moment, so we're going to back off on WireGuard support.
You're way too kind.
I was trying to,
It's a disaster. Yeah. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it was a CF. So anyways, in 2.5.2, they've added back WireGuard support as an experimental add-in. But as Brent was a little bit more honestly describing the situation, they realized trying to do an in-place upgrade from someone who did 2.5 with the optional stuff to 2.52 with the new optional stuff that we're sort of going to support is just not a good move. No one is going to be happy at all. So a lot of the people who are wanting to upgrade, you got sort of two choices. You get to rebuild your WireGuard from scratch and do a clean install, or you could sort of, get around the whole reason you're doing this and try and apply it through like OpenVPN or another software like that, where that's where WireGuard is going to be sitting. So easier, but for a purist, that's a little nauseating, as I'm sure Brett will agree.
Oh yeah, this is usually good software.
Oh, totally.
They made a big mistake.
Yeah, they did. Well, too early.
And the code quality was poor. I think that's generous.
And that was horrible because both programs before were very solidly coded. But you put them together, and it wasn't peanut butter and chocolate. It was
there may have been some management changes there, if I remember the story. And I think the person who got the nod to do the WireGuard integration into the code base made a lot of mistakes, if I remember correctly.
Sounds like they did.
I mean, really obvious security kind of mistakes, real bad coding errors and stuff like that. Yeah.
A bellows-cooled PC. What is this?
It's breathing.
This is how they used to cool PCs back in the dark ages.
Oh, okay.
Same.
This is how air conditioning used to work. They would have a high and a low pressure area done by bellows.
Okay.
And
the entire bottom of the
area was cooled off, and the low pressure area, of course, expanded and by itself just cooled, and that's why you got early air conditioning.
Is there a video of this working?
Yes.
Video of this?
If you follow the Hackaday. And they run the air that's being forced up and over the components over a radiator. So you've got essentially a reverse water cooling going. And they've set up all sorts, it is more or less self-contained. They've set up a bunch of baffling so that the air is not getting sucked in from the externals, except, to sort of keep the pressure relatively equal, which you can see by or at least you used to be able to see by the water pressure jumping up and down there.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
So it's just a wonderfully wild idea. Just so you've got this water-cooled radiator where the already, as Josh told you, once they force the expansion, the air cools down, over it goes, and back down again. And they did it via a bit of hydraulics and neodymium magnets. And they'd already built a bellows system just to prove that you can do it with magnets. And apparently halfway through about the build, the bellows system that they did cracked and broke, so they had to redo it. And the tubes that they had the magnets in weren't quite the exact same diameter. So he ends up electroplating the neodymium magnets to make them just a little bit bigger so that they slide properly through everything. So yeah, it's quite the build process. But I looked at that and I'm like, it takes up some space, but
good grief.
It's kind of worth it.
It's pretty big.
Is it silent, though?
No.
Okay.
It will not.
It's not bad.
What's the point? I guess just to do it?
All you're going to be hearing... essentially
like
having Darth Vader
lung.
sort of next to you. Yeah. It is an old iron lung, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I feel like we've talked about this before, haven't we? Didn't Jim bring this up at one point, the total conversion thing?
Yes, but not this one.
Not
yes.
TIE Fighter.
So these are the same guys that did the update to X-Wing Alliance, which is what the game you need to own to be able to play this. So what they did is make X-Wing Alliance upgrade with huge visual effects. The cockpits were totally redone, and they added a little bit of their own sort of spices to it. But oh, come on, TIE Fighter was just an amazing freaking game. So yeah, that's what it looked like.
You were just keeping the peace.
Briefings.
You weren't the evil people.
Well, but that was your cockpit, and those were the graphics. So if you jump just a little bit further, unless you want to keep watching.
That's okay. I'm just noticing that they put a little bit of a filter on this. They're adding scan lines. Anyway.
Well,
so
now
that's a bit better.
It looks a wee bit different.
And sounds.
And yes, sounds so much different. So what they did is they took the original, they added in the 2 expansion packs and a bunch of their own missions to weigh in at around 145 missions from this free mod, which all you need to own is X-Wing Alliance, which is like $3 right now because of the Steam Summer Sale, or $10 normally anywhere else.
So because it's free, Disney's
What's
not going
on?
to shut this down?
Disney will try, but they didn't ever own LucasArts at that point.
Interesting loophole.
Why did George have to sell? Very quick mention of a review that went up this week on the site. A pair of gaming headphones from EPOS. Now, you may know EPOS is the company that took over the Sennheiser brand. They bought it, or at least a division of it. Now they do all the gaming headsets. So for a while it was co-branded EPOS Sennheiser. I think it's just EPOS now. But this is the GSP 602, and the 602 and 601 are they differ because of the colors. This is the one that I have is the alternative kind of color. It's a dark metallic navy with what they call brandy colored ear pads. They're basically brown. It looks like brown leather with navy, which is, it's not a bad look.
I'd be worried if my brandy was that color.
I have the headset right here. So depending on your lighting and the situation, it's going to look almost black. But in bright lighting, you can see that it's actually dark blue.
The ear cups look sort of orange in that light.
Yeah, they are pretty much orange. I tried to do the color correction with these photos to make it match what I saw under this studio lighting, but let's see a picture of the ear pads. They're pretty much light brown.
Yeah, it looks like a nice leather, actually.
Yeah, but they're like a simulated leather. It's good padding level. The headband pad is a little bit thicker than average. Not as cushy as the ear pads. Those are really cushy.
Hey, wasn't Luke's leather jacket at the end of The New Hope that same color brown?
Very
when they went up
close.
to the award ceremony?
Yeah, the throne room scene.
Yep, it is.
I really thought that, I don't know, it really reminded me of, some of them reminded me of the old original Battlestar Galactica
Yeah.
Don't
style.
Those were
Yeah,
really
the,
brown.
the arms.
now.
Yeah, the arms. No, it reminds. Well, Sebastian, you've had a small child. You also recognize that color.
Usage impressions. Now, quickly running over the specs a little bit. These are they claim 10 to 30,000 hertz. They don't give a plus minus on that, so who knows what the dB range of that is. Impedance is 28 ohms, and sensitivity is 112 dB. But they're pretty sensitive and easy to drive, so that's good. Because these are a 3.5 millimeter analog headset, not wireless. And they sound really, really good. Now, the price on these, the list price is $219. So you're thinking like $219 Sennheisers, basically, which now EPOS, but they should sound good. Well, they do. They have very, very good bass, good dynamic, punchy kind of sound, very good lower bass, very clear sounding, but have that kind of scooped sound where there's a lot less mid-range presence, so vocals are kind of back in the mix a little bit. And I found the sound quality in general to be excellent, and then even the microphone quality is above average. Gave it the old gold award because I was having a little bit of trouble at 219, especially considering how good their wireless GSP 370s are. These sound better than the GSP 370s, but the GSP 370s are wireless in $199, so $20 more. Anyway, they're down to $149 now. And it doesn't appear to be a sale. I thought at first it was a sale price, but it's
Wow,
just listed as $149.
that's cheap. That's like the price of the SR 125.
71?
Different thing.
Yeah, I know. And one's cheaper than the other.
Yeah,
Little bit.
comparing them to the Grados would have less bass, more mid-range presence, would be better for music, I think, more accurate sound. But these are closed back headphones with a boom mic. So, I mean, there's definitely different use case.
Different
And
market.
If you're more of a bass head, these are great even for just music listening. The only thing I didn't really like about them is, as you can kind of see, this is a pretty chunky looking design here as I switch to the wrong camera. It's really, the clamping force on them is pretty intense. So, not super intense, but when I adjusted them and had them on my face, this is like I would easily say this is about a 7 out of 10 for like pressure against the sides of your head. So for somebody like me who's a delicate flower and likes a medium clamping force, after a while, the headphone pushing into the side of my head was a little annoying. I could break these in. There's, what I've usually done is I get a bookshelf speaker and I just plant these against the shelf, like the bookshelf speaker, for a few days. Stretch out the headband a little bit. But good quality headset.
Hey, they look robust.
They are very robust. No. You can
solid
Watch as he
headband.
snaps it. Bang.
I know. It's like, bam. Oh, no.
They're pretty heavy. These are 14 ounces. So, but listen, there's no plastic creaking of any kind. You can hear the clicks for the adjustment, but no creakiness. Very.
That's kind of like those
well-made.
Easy SMX headphones I reviewed years ago. I mean, they're essentially indestructible, which is why I gave them to my son. They still sounded good, and they were like $25 to $30. But yeah, you couldn't break them. I mean, you could, but you'd have to try really hard.
All right, are we ready for picks of the week?
Yes, ma'am.
Josh,
I
you're
guess I'll go
first.
first.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've mentioned these before in the past, but I thought I'd do it again because only this past weekend did I finally pare down my 4 terabyte game drive down to below 2 terabytes, and then I transferred all the games over to this Mushkin Pilot E 2 terabyte NVMe drive, and they go anywhere from 189 to 220. They kind of stay in that range, and let me tell you, the actual loading performance difference is stunning because I previously had a Toshiba 7200 RPM, 128 meg cache, 4 terabyte drive that would, it would max out at 200 to 220 megabytes per second. And I was, playing Dirt Rally 2.0, and sometimes the load times on that is a little annoying. Not annoying anymore when you've got NVMe running. I mean, it was just smoking. I mean, usually you'd sit and you'd be able to kind of look at the course when the dots would pop up where the waypoints are. It couldn't even go and pop up all the waypoints before you were loaded up. So it's a fantastic drive for not very much money. And if you have a game drive, if you want a game drive, get one of these. I mean, they're relatively inexpensive. They're around 10 cents a gig. And your load times just disappear, and your overall performance is, you're not going to gain frames per second in most things, but there could be areas where you've got some dynamic loading going on in the background that you'll see some improvements. And certainly going from nothing to a full level, it's 4 times faster easily. So yeah, it's a nice thing to get if that's important to you and you got space on your machine. And yeah, it's great. It's not horribly expensive. So it's fast. It's nice.
Get one
Fast.
now.
It's nice. Buy one today. Jeremy, your pick.
They have come, or at least returned briefly, to Canada. I put up one just so that you'd have a nice link to go to straight. But I have noticed that there are 6700, 6700 XTs, the occasional 6800 and 6800 XT in stock in Canada at Memory Express. Now, you can't order them online. You do have to show up in person.
Wait, there isn't a 6700 vanilla.
Or, sorry, you're right. 6700 XT,
anyway,
6800,
sorry.
6800 XT. And the prices for Canada are not artificially inflated as you are seeing on Amazon and everything else.
Only $1,064.99 Canadian.
Yeah, which is pretty much MSRP. But
What's
yeah, you
that
scroll down and you
freedom
click on
dollar?
availability and just click on the select a region
Okay.
and we'll see how many are left. Yeah, just click there. Look, not just 1 or 2, 10 plus. And Memory Express does 10 plus. They do 1 through 10 and more than 10.
Okay.
So they're there. If you see this and you need one, go now. Spend a little bit of time, or
that's still
just
for a 6,700. That's still $800 as for a $499 MSRP price. I mean, it's not insane. It's not insane, mind, but it's not there yet.
yes,
But
I get
at
you.
least
But
there's
at the same
availability,
time,
and it's less than $1,200 Canadian, which is what they had been going for.
yeah, and our pricing isn't exactly the same. It's not just direct conversion, which is why sometimes I might buy cards in the US and
Fudge a little.
bring them back.
Anyway.
But yeah, no, those are decent prices, and they're there. NVIDIA fans, well, either make a choice or just sit and wait, because, yeah, we're not seeing many of them yet at all.
All right. Brett, you have a pick?
I do, and this is something a little different. It's if you're a technical person, or you've got you want to build a model, or maybe you want to have something to do with the kids. This is actually a cool thing that sort of combines those things. These are laser cut wooden knockdown kits that assemble them. When assembled, create these 3D models that actually operate with gears or moving pieces, and they're actually kind of fun to build. I've been building one, that Marble Madness one, or that Marble Run one, with one of my kids here over the last couple of days. I mean, it's really interesting how it all fits together, and it is a lesson in engineering and ingenuity and how stuff
And
fits
patience?
together, and
Yeah,
a little bit of patience. They're actually fairly sturdy. There's been very little breakage. Surprised the amount of abuse. Yeah, there's only one piece that actually.
Are there any
got a
spare
crack in it.
pieces in this?
Yes, there are.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay, and the prices
There
are
are
not
some-
that bad, actually. As
No.
complicated as these are.
For as intricate as these may appear to be, and they are, and the functionality that you get out of them is like, oh, this is never going to work. And you snap everything together and you put it all together, and like, I cannot believe how smoothly this operates.
Really?
It's interesting. Yeah, it's
What are the
actually sort of fun.
for audio listeners for these things?
They run about $50.
Okay.
Some less, some a little bit more. And they have things like movie cameras, marble movers, robots, clocks, just fun things to build. And they look fantastic, even not moving. And it's an engineering marvel when you put it together. And it's a fun project if you can stand the details.
If you like pain, if you want to torture yourself with
It's
a million tiny
not
parts.
like that. It's
I
not like
put
that.
together a little cut, like wooden, like balsa
Yeah.
wood truck. I had an operating. Oh, what did it have? It was like a dump truck for my son. It was a pain in the ass, and of course, he broke it in about an hour. So I'm never doing that again.
These sorts of things are not meant for the sub 10-year-olds. You want
Right, yeah,
maybe
they're not
right
for a
around that
5-year-old.
age. No, certainly not. But this is for maybe to get engaged with a project with a kid who is, looking at engineering of some sort, or mechanics in such a way that they might find it interesting.
All right. I don't know where I have the thing I was going to use for my pick this week, but I'll use that next week if I remember. This week,
Rookie excuse.
I'll go to the
Yeah.
shelf of stuff behind me because that's what's easiest, and I will select this for my pick of the week. If you're a retro hardware enthusiast, this is one of the more important devices. This is the CT4390. It's one of the two revisions of the AW64 Gold. So this is there's AW64s, there's AW64s. This is the Gold. A couple different board revisions for this. I think one of them just had slightly more integration. It might be this one. But if you've heard sound, like DOS sound with, say, a daughter board, like a Wave Blaster 2, one of the many, many different soundboard options that are out there. The
So,
Wavetable
Wing
daughter boards.
Commander.
Anything that supported the wavetable audio, or even general MIDI, like something that you could attach an external MIDI device, like one of the Roland devices, or Yamaha or something, and it has its own kind of sound, but it's so good that if you were an enthusiast and you wanted to use real hardware to play old games, and you craved the sound of something like a Wave Blaster board, which are almost impossible to find and insanely expensive, this becomes actually kind of a good value. Because if you can grab one of these at a reasonable price, the sound from this is better than most wavetable daughter boards, and it does the wavetable, does the sound blaster, sound effects, all that stuff. So they're great. I mean, I don't have to tell you if you're an enthusiast who would actually use one of these old cards. But
long time ago.
Yeah.
In a galaxy far, far away.
It's probably the greatest ISA sound card ever made, other than the Roland SCC-1 or whatever the card is. That's basically a...
Not a Turtle Beach fan, I see.
Turtle Beach...
They did ISA cards.
They did, but I'm trying to think, because Turtle Beach had a wavetable board too, a daughter board. I'm not going to try to find it right here, but there's a YouTube channel that I've posted about in the past that has all of these. You can listen to them.
I integrated an A64. May have been an A32, but I think it was a 64. With I built it for a friend of mine, and also got her a rendition V2100 video card.
Really? So
it actually had reasonable direct 3D performance. I mean, not as good as Voodoo 2, but yeah, that's the timeline of these really interesting ISA sound cards.
Okay, so there is a YouTube channel. It is called Wavetable Channel. It has all of 83 subscribers, myself included. Very exclusive community of people who will go to a channel like this, and literally, if you look in the timestamps, these are all the devices playing the exact same thing. This is playing Grab Bag from Duke 3D, and you can listen to it. Like, if I want to hear that in an A64 Gold, the CT4390 I was just holding, it's right there at the 12-minute and 39-second mark. Wave Blaster 2, compare it to the Wave Blaster 2. I have a Wave Blaster 2. The Gold sounds better than the Wave Blaster 2, and the Wave Blaster 2 costs basically a mortgage payment. You can find one. So it's like,
what about the old IBM Aptiva? I mean, I haven't heard that in a long time.
Yeah, that was a rebranded something or other, I think. The Aptiva, what was the Aptiva? Anyway, I'll click on it.
It was shite.
The look. Because you can see each thing. Yeah, it's the Aptiva is actually a rebranded Crystal. So you can see the wavetable board. It's a Crystal Audio something or other with probably some, like, I don't know, 1 megabyte.
That's crazy.
2 megabytes.
But yeah, that's a level of OCD I can't understand.
What do you mean?
But somebody does, and he's got 83 subscribers.
And there's not a single thumbs down on that video.
Well, listen.
Until I find it and subscribe.
If you are a hardware enthusiast and you are actually out there looking for parts, this is such a valuable resource. There are so few daughter boards in existence anymore. These things were trashed long ago. And you find
they've all grown up and become motherboards.
That's our show tonight. Thanks for watching, listening, both. Maybe. Until next week, good night.
Good night.